Good morning, everybody. Yesterday, we looked at the transportation model of urban growth. How towns or cities began with the concept of being able to get around either by walking or using horse and wagon. And then next, we looked at how cities grew with the development of the trolley. And then how cities grew in response to the invention and the spreading of the automobile and buses, and then onto what we have today, and that's the highways and interstates that go through cities. Today, I'd like us to focus on the concept of urban sprawl. Now, when we look at urban sprawl, we have to understand the term, and then we have to look at some concepts that go along with urban sprawl. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to define urban sprawl. We're going to look at some concepts that go along with urban sprawl. Oh shoot, that's going to take us 10, 15 minutes to do. And then I want to give you the rest of the class period to work on your assignment 2. If you haven't finished assignment 1 from yesterday, finish assignment 1 first before you move on to assignment number 2. So let's go ahead and begin. Let's just kind of look at what urban sprawl is. You'll notice that I have a satellite image from 1984 of a city, and then you see the same city in the year 2016. Look at the area north and east of the number 4 in 1984. Look at all the green space. Look at the rural areas. Look at the areas to the north of the 1 and the 9. Look at all that green. Now look at 2016. What's happened to most of that green space? It's gone, isn't it? That's urban sprawl. See, urban sprawl is the spread of urbanized areas outside of the compact urban area. It's going to what used to be rural land. See, with the invention of iron and with the invention of steel, cities grew up. In other words, they grew up. We built skyscrapers and taller buildings. However, with the development of trolley cars, especially automobiles and buses, and then with interstates and highways, we were no longer building up. Cities were no longer building up, but cities were building out. That building out of a city is known as urban sprawl. If I'm talking too fast here, just have the teacher who's filling in for me stop the video so you can get that written down before we move on. So urban sprawl, the moving out of a city into what used to be rural land. Let's look at some concepts that go along with urban sprawl. The first concept we need to look at is the concept of suburbanization. Now, what you're looking at in that graphic is you're looking at the city of Omaha. When Omaha first developed, the original Omaha is there in red. And you can see how Omaha over the years has spread both north and south, but primarily it has spread west. That movement of the city out to the rural areas, but still connected to the city, is known as suburbanization. Suburbanization is the process in population growth and economic activity where the city expands onto the fringes. And if you just look at the colors in the key on the right, you can see how Omaha has mainly expanded to the west. And every decade you can see how it just kept going further and further out from the fringes. Suburbanization. The movement of a city out to the rural areas. Always on the fringe expanding. Think about it. When I was your age, the western edge of Omaha was the West Roads. When I was in junior high and we competed against Boys Town in basketball and baseball, we had a good 4 or 5 mile ride out into the country to get to Boys Town. Now think where Boys Town is at. You drive through this, Boys Town is surrounded by Omaha. When I was in junior high and we would have to travel out to Elkhorn to play Elkhorn in sports, we were driving out into the country to get to Elkhorn. We were driving out in the country to get to Boys Town, and we keep going to get to the city of Elkhorn. Now Elkhorn is part of Omaha. Suburbanization. Another term we need to look at is this concept of urban realm. See, urban realm is the idea that suburban areas basically can function upon their own. Think of the area around Omaha-Burke. Think of the area around Village Point. There's grocery stores there. Now there's hospitals out there. There's clothing stores out there. There's really no need to travel east into the downtown area of Omaha. You can basically live in West Omaha or North Omaha or South Omaha, and there's everything you need right in your suburban area. No need to drive down to the central business district. That's what we refer to as urban realm. Just being able to take care of everything you need right in your section of the city, in your suburb. Again, if I'm going too fast, just have the teacher pause the YouTube video until you're caught up, and then we can keep going. Well, as we dig deeper into urban sprawl, another concept we need to look at is an edge city. Wondering if this picture I took in Omaha looks familiar to any of you. I took this picture in West Omaha. That might be a hint. I took this picture right off of Dodge Street. Here's another hint. My final hint, I took this picture just to the north of Boys Town. See, an edge city is a suburb that has jobs there, there are shops there, and there's also maybe some headquarters for state companies, national companies, maybe even international companies. That's called an edge city. See, urban realm and edge city, they're related to one another. When we head down to Omaha here in a couple weeks, we'll purposely pull in here so I can show you an example of an edge city where you can see these corporate headquarters. Maybe if you just close your eyes and envision the land just north of Boys Town, you can envision this picture I have here for you. There's several headquarters to companies right there just to the north of Boys Town. Edge city. Another concept we need to look at is the concept of an exurb. In some ways, Cedar Bluffs, some geographers would consider Cedar Bluffs an exurb. Again, on the left, I have a map of Omaha there, and then I have a picture of Bennington and the Bennington Water Tower. And see, Bennington's right up here, where I have my marker right now. And Bennington is an example of an exurb. See, an exurb is a subdivision or a town itself that's located beyond the suburbs. Gretna is an exurb. Bennington is an exurb. There is space between Omaha and that town. Cedar Bluffs, are we an exurb for Fremont? Is Englewood an exurb for Fremont? Is Hooper an exurb of Fremont? Some people might argue that Fremont is an exurb of Omaha. Malcolm is an exurb of Lincoln. Often these exurbs have a rural look to it. And what I mean by that is you have your co-ops. You might even have a tractor implement center there. Because they're traditionally a rural town, but because of urban sprawl, they take on serving an urban area. I've been out here in Cedar Bluffs for almost, 30 years. Cedar Bluffs has stayed the same size for 30 years. Yutan has almost doubled, maybe even tripled in size. Why have we stayed the same, but yet Yutan has doubled or tripled in size? Look how close. Think of how close Yutan is to Omaha. I have my little cursor there on Yutan. Look how close. If you work in Omaha, but you want to live in a small town, shoot, you got Yutan. Well, until the flood, you could be in Omaha in 10 or 15 minutes from Yutan. So places like Yutan, Bennington, Ashland, exurbs of a major city. Let's turn our attention to Colorado Springs. Yesterday, you worked with that slide ruler, that slide timeline of the growth of Colorado Springs since 1950. And here, I have a satellite image of Colorado Springs, a relatively new satellite image of Colorado Springs, and you can see Cheyenne Mountain, NORAD. You can see the Air Force Academy up in the north. You can see Fort Carson in the south. You can definitely see the Rocky Mountains to the west. Matter of fact, you can even see Pikes Peak. You can see the exurb of Manitou Springs. You can see the highways coming into Colorado Springs, going out of Colorado Springs. You see Interstate number 25. Recall from yesterday how much Colorado Springs has grown in the last 60 years. How has Colorado Springs managed such growth? Colorado Springs has done several things. One of the things that they've done is that they have built a beltway. They've built a highway around Colorado Springs. I'll illustrate that in just a second. They've also built urban villages. Villages in the urban area. Explain that here in a second. They've also built leapfrog developments. I think we talked about that. Yeah, sure, you see one up there by Falcon. You can see there some by my cursor right there. And they've also just extended That idea of urban fringe, they've extended it both to the northeast and the southeast. And then they've done some infill projects. So Colorado Springs has taken on 5 different approaches to handle their growth, their population growth, over the last 60 years. Let's look at each one of those a little bit more specific. Here is an example of a beltway around Charlotte. Here you can see the 2 original interstates that cut through the heart of Charlotte, but then you can see how the city of Charlotte has built a road around the outskirts of Charlotte. One thing about a beltway, what ultimately usually happens with a beltway, is cities expand out to the beltway. But it definitely does ease the traffic congestion going through the center of the city. Here's an example of an urban village. This might look familiar to you. Matter of fact, in a couple weeks we're going to be going here. I'm trying to schedule a tour here. This is Midtown Crossing near downtown Omaha. See, an urban village, the goal of an urban village is to create an area where people can live. You can see the apartments here, the condominiums here, and underneath the condominiums, underneath the apartments, on the first floor, you have businesses that you would need in a town or a city. You have barber shops, you have beauty salons, you have grocery stores, you have places to eat, you have entertainment areas, you have green space out here for concerts and for musicals and for gatherings. The idea behind an urban village is that people don't need cars. They can walk to work. They can take the city bus to work. And usually these urban villages are closely built next to places of employment or to the central business district. Here in a couple weeks we'll look at one. Here's a great example of a leapfrog. See that housing development near the forefront of the picture? Then you see the road on the right-hand side of the picture driving into the city. So here you have an urban development way away from the city. I think yesterday we used the example that in some ways Vala Heights is a leapfrog for Fremont. Here is, again, a map of Omaha and the idea of the extension. Where in Colorado Springs they extended to the northeast and to the southeast, Omaha, as we looked at earlier today, is expanding to the west. Here's the proposed annexation of Omaha expanding. Look where they're wanting to expand, and look where they're wanting to annex. To the west and to the north of Omaha. Finally, one way a city can increase its population is not necessarily by urban sprawl, but by taking older areas of a city, abandoned areas of a city, tearing down what is ever there, and rebuilding an area. I'm going to take it for granted that you've probably been to the CHI Center down in Omaha, or you've been to TD Ameritrade. Folks, all that used to be was either warehouses or abandoned buildings. The city of Omaha went in, knocked all that down, made the land safe from pollution, and now they're rebuilding new buildings on that. People are going down there to live and to eat and to be entertained. Great example of infill. We'll look at some infill when we head down to Omaha. So today, we just wanted to look at this concept of urban sprawl and some concepts that go along with urban sprawl Then I wanted to tie it into Colorado Springs. Now, I want you to be able to have the rest of the time to work on your assignment. Now, we're not going to panic. You don't have to get the assignment done today. You'll have time to work on the assignment tomorrow if you need. Then if you need to take it home tomorrow night, you can take it home tomorrow night. But I'm going to ask the teacher to pause the assignment and pass out the worksheet that's on my desk. And while the teacher's passing out the worksheet on my desk, could you take out your laptops? So go ahead and pause the video here until you have your worksheets. All right, you have your worksheets. You have your computer open. Please go to my website, mrbrosek.com. Scroll down to computerized chapter activities. Open up computerized chapter activities and go to 11.2, urban sprawl scenario analysis. And what you're going to get is you're going to get 2 maps of Colorado Springs. Let's look at the key. Purple, new growth. Brown, where the city already is. Green stripes, areas that are sensitive to the environment, maybe wetlands or whatever it may be, but they're ecologically sensitive areas. Let's look at the roads. The thickness of the roads, the thicker the road, the more traffic that's going to take place on that road because of whatever you're going to decide. Let's look at some examples here. Why 2 maps? So right now we're looking at it. What would happen in Colorado Springs if they would build a beltway around the eastern part of the city? And there in the purple, you see what would happen in Colorado Springs when they built that beltway. Now you can go up here to the top and you can look at how that beltway affected in that green there. That's the land that ecologically is sensitive. Was it a good thing? How did the beltway affect that area? You can go back down here and click on traffic. Remember, thicker the line, more traffic being used. Here's your mass transit. Everything in blue is your mass transit line, your bus lines. And then here's some reference. Where's the Air Force Academy? Where's Peterson Air Force Base? Where's Fort Carson? Where's NORAD? Where's the Rocky Mountains in dark green? So you have 2 maps here, folks. So you compare. You can compare Beltway, the reference, or you can compare Beltway, the mass transit, to Beltway, the traffic. Besides Beltway, you can look at urban villages, where the urban villages were built. Every urban village has a star. You can look at the leapfrog developments that were built out there to the east in purple. You can look at the extension of Colorado Springs to the northeast and to the southeast. And then you can look at the different infill projects that Colorado Springs did. And then if you flip over your handout to the second page, you'll see a little chart that looks like this. And it tells you how many houses were added with each type of development, how many dwellings per acre, how many areas of land were converted, the cost, the impact on traffic, all these different things are on this chart. So between using this chart, or this graph I should say, and using the manipulative maps, go ahead and look at all those impacts that you see on the 3rd page of your worksheet. And what you have to decide is, all right, if this is what we're considering, what's the best thing Colorado Springs should do? What's the worst thing Colorado Springs could do? So for each one of those criteria, what's the worst thing? What's the best thing Colorado Springs can do? Now then you have a column there called rationale. If you're going to focus your rationale on the best, put a B by it and then explain to me your rationale. if you're going to focus on why is this situation the worst thing that Colorado Springs could do, put a W by it, and then explain to me why. Why is it the worst thing Colorado Springs could do? Now, I realize you're down to about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. So go ahead and get as far as you can. Don't worry about taking it home. And we'll finish it up tomorrow with what you don't get finished. Those of you that have a track meet today, good luck to you today. Those of you that were involved in Quiz Bowl, I hope yesterday went well, and I'll see you tomorrow.